Less than 30 days waits between us and the start of another football season, and all fan bases, as usual, will jump into things hoping that this will be the year they don't endure absolute pain and suffering. And today we're going to talk about the avenue all these teams can take to avoid that. Here is how your team can win the Super Bowl in the 2025 NFL season. Starting things off with the Arizona Cardinals, they need to have their young talents give them a big enough boost to get over the final hurdle. The Cardinals, the last couple of drafts, have done an absolutely outstanding job of adding some well-needed talent to this team. And now I think it's all about just putting 2 and 2 together. They may have what it takes to at least be competitive in their division, and that's all it really takes. You just got to get to the big dance, and then anything can happen, as football has shown us time and time again. The only issue is they have Kyler Murray, and we know what he's going to be at this point. So I figure if you can build the most well-rounded team possible around him, maybe you can make up for some of those mistakes that you know he's going to make. The NFC West is very wide open this season, especially if Matt Stafford proves to have more problems with his injuries. So the Cardinals need to try and take advantage, and I think with the past couple of drafts, maybe it could be possible. For the Atlanta Falcons, it's all about Michael Penix taking the next step. Last year, we saw some flashes of what the Falcons could be with some decent quarterback play. He had his ups and downs in his rookie season, as you'd expect, maybe jumping into that starting position a little earlier than any of us thought. But now that he's had some NFL experience, you're just hoping that he can build upon that and take this team to another level. There's a lot of great offensive threats on this team, and in recent years, they've almost always been held back by poor to even worse than poor levels of quarterback play. So if Michael Penix can at least be decent, this team may actually have a shot at winning the division. And just like what I said with the Cardinals, you just gotta get there to have a chance. The Baltimore Ravens. For me, it's just as simple as one thing. Lamar Jackson deciding to not choke games away anymore in critical playoff scenarios. That to me has been the difference with this Baltimore team the last few seasons, despite them being more than good enough to compete for a Super Bowl. It seems like whenever the lights are at their brightest against top-level teams, the Lamar kind of just shrinks under the pressure. People are going to yell at Mark Andrews for that crucial drop, and I can understand that. But for a lot of that game, Lamar Jackson was pretty terrible. It took a Herculean comeback just to be in that position to begin with because of the mistakes that he was making. He's got to get over this hump, man. He can't keep doing it. The Ravens might have the most talented team in the league on paper, so now it's up to Lamar, the guy who's supposed to be the best player on the team, to lead them to the promised land. If he can overcome his poor starts in playoff games, the sky's the limit for Baltimore. The Buffalo Bills. It's as simple as one thing. Beat the Chiefs. For years running, this Buffalo team has more than been capable of being a Super Bowl champion, but they always seem to run into Kansas City and Pat Mahomes no matter what they do. You know you're going to have to run into them. It happens every single time without fail, and every time you're right there. You've shown you can beat them, but the execution is always just a little bit lackluster down the stretch, which loses you these critical games. In all likelihood, they're going to have to face them again at some point in the playoffs, so apply what you've learned the last few years and just get past them already. Either that, or pray that you can get lucky and someone else randomly takes them out for you. That's it, man. I mean, genuinely, if they get past the Chiefs, they can beat anyone. It's the one thing they have yet to do. The Carolina Panthers. It's all about Bryce Young continuously improving, and maybe the NFC South being a little bit on the mid-side. Bryce Young showed some flashes towards the end of the season as the Panthers started to show some improvement as a team. It seems that him getting benched temporarily for Andy Dalton lit some kind of fire under him because he looked more like the number one pick that he was supposed to be at times, playing some good teams really close, pulling off some upsets as well. If he gets even better and develops some more confidence in his game, and maybe the offense takes form a little bit more with Tech McMillan, that they could be really dangerous to their division. I do worry about their defense a lot, though, hence why I think you got to hope for a little bit of luck in this scenario, where maybe Tampa Bay underperforms a little bit, because I don't know if the team is well-rounded enough to truly compete, so it's going to take Bryce being better and a little bit of luck. Next up, the Chicago Bears, who have to pray that Ben Johnson brings some kind of competence to this team. The Bears have been plagued by bad coaching, and they were off to a really bad start in the Caleb Williams era, but now they get a fresh start with a new coach who is supposed to be an offensive guru who can hopefully unlock the full potential of Caleb Williams and this very talented Bears offense. The Bears have plenty of options at receiver, even drafting Luther Burden at wide receiver, plus getting more tight end power as well. They built the offensive line like crazy in the offseason. At this point, it is on Ben Johnson to make sure he can get the most out of this team, because there's enough there to be seriously competitive. Playing in the NFC North does you no favors, but this is where you show that you were a key part of the Lions as you bring that team to a new level they didn't know they were capable of. The Cincinnati Bengals are up next, and they need any semblance of a defense. Am I asking too much here, just knowing how poorly their offseason went with acquiring new defensive players? Probably, but it would definitely help a lot in their case to not only win their division, but maybe have a chance at going back to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and that core on offense were absolutely insane. They're in their prime right now, dropping over 30 points every single game, it felt like. The problem is if they made one mistake, they'd lose the game because their defense couldn't stop anything for shit. If they can just have a couple of more key playmakers on defense to step up, this Bengals team's going to be right back in the thick of it. A prime Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase right now is so hard to stop, but they can't keep playing in these games where it's like 42-49 every single game. Please get better defense. Please. The Cleveland Browns hope that one of your 8 million quarterbacks does not suck. It might be one of the most wild quarterback situations I've ever seen over in Cleveland. You got old man Joe Flacco likely to start, you have Kenny Pickett, plus you drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks. And despite having all those options, they're all mediocre at best, and that's just not going to do this Cleveland team any good, knowing how severely they're lacking and how tough of a division they play in. One of them has to step up and be competent. Just a couple of years ago, we saw what happened when there is competent QB play over there. So if they can regain that form, just knowing what they have on defense especially, this Cleveland team could be a problem. The issue is, I just don't know if that's humanly possible. They got to figure something out, otherwise they're going to be terrible. The Dallas Cowboys, you gotta find a way to return to form with your running game. I don't know what it is, but the last few years, the Dallas Cowboys have not seemed like themselves offensively, and I think a lot of it has to do with not having that dominant run game that we saw a handful of years ago, back when they still had like a prime Ezekiel Elliott and a more dominant offensive line. That's when this Cowboys team was at their best, when they could control the clock and have a balanced approach to their offense. If they can have that back, Dallas are going to be really annoying again. But with Javonte Williams and a couple of rookies and Miles Sanders, I don't know if they necessarily have that appealing option on their team. So they're going to have to figure that out and be more aggressive with that run game. Otherwise, they're never going to be that same team that we saw when they actually felt like contenders back in the day. For the Denver Broncos, it's all about that defense being even more dominant and hoping that Bo Nix continues to develop. It's a pretty simple process out in Denver. They know what they have, and it seems pretty favorable. They have one of the best, if not the best defenses in the league that actually got even better during the offseason on paper. And then you have Bo Nix, who's playing above expectations so far in his career. You just need both of those things to stay on the right trend, and this Broncos team could very easily be a playoff team again. That defense is absolutely disgusting, especially with some of the pieces they recently added. So I think if they keep doing their thing, and Bo Nix learns a little bit more and opens up his playbook, that this Broncos team's going to be a real problem, and they will be a threat to not necessarily win their division, but be right in the thick of it for a wild card spot. And with a defense that scary, they could go on a tear in the playoffs. So they just got to get there and show that consistent development. And I'd be very excited if I was a Broncos fan. The Detroit Lions. Avoid the hospital. There's no other way to describe it for Detroit. Yes, they did choke against the Commanders. It was unacceptable to lose to them the way they did. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of their season definitely was derailed, and it became a lot more difficult as those injuries started to pile up. They had so many players go onto the IR, especially defensively, and that's a shame because they were actually not bad at all defensively to start the year, but they slowly but surely started to slip down to the bottom half of the league as those injuries started to pile up. So if key players like Aiden Hutchinson can stay on the field and continue to do their thing, there's reason to believe the Lions could have even more upside. They've got to not choke when the lights are at their brightest like we've seen the last few years, but I think having a good defense would certainly help with that. So please, for the love of God, football gods, if you're listening, just watch over those guys and don't let them be so cursed for once, because they have what it takes to be a Staying in the NFC North, you got the Green Bay Packers, and while there's a lot of things this team could certainly improve upon to get to that next level, to me it all starts with Jordan Love staying healthy and playing most, if not all, of the season. It's felt like since he's become the Green Bay starter that injuries have constantly plagued him, and last year, things got the worst they've ever been. He missed multiple games, and that just doesn't help. Those are key wins that could have helped them win the division. Those are key games, key reps that he was missing out with his guys to develop himself individually, but also build up more chemistry. Jordan Love has potential, but it's really hard to get into a rhythm when you're always missing time and rehabbing on the side of being the best you can be offensively. So I think if he can stay healthy, this Packers team is going to take a bit of a jump potentially. They have a lot of great players on the roster, and I like what they're doing by drafting more wide receivers and everything, so just try and keep this guy on the field now. Protect him at all costs. Speaking of protecting, for the Houston Texans, please, for the love of God, protect CJ Stroud. Do everything in your power to keep this guy upright, because what we saw last year was completely unacceptable. After an extremely successful first year in the league, it felt like the Texans took a bit of a step back. There were injuries, of course, that kind of helped with that, but the biggest thing was the offensive line. It was absolutely terrible in 2024, giving up 54 sacks total, tied for third worst in the league. If you're giving up more sacks than what the Patriots line did last year, you know that you're doing something wrong. You gotta protect this guy. Some people thought that he fell off a little bit last year because he had no time to throw, so his stats weren't as good, and he wasn't making the same decisions that we saw in his rookie season. I just think that's unfair to the guy. He still won a playoff game last year, despite having one of the worst O-lines in the NFL. They've got to try and fix that some way, somehow, because if he can do what he did last year with that bad O-line, imagine what he could be with just a decent O-line. The Texans are so close to having something special, but they've got to figure out the trenches up front if they want to get there. The Indianapolis Colts. The quarterback quote-unquote competition brings out the best in either AR or DJ. Now, if we're being realistic, the Colts are probably going to suck. This, alongside Cleveland, is probably the most miserable quarterback room in the NFL, and Colts fans are going to feel major depression by the time this season ends. But you gotta hope that something can go right. The Colts were on track to potentially be a wild card team last year, but their QB play was absolutely atrocious. So that's where DJ and AR come in. If even one of them can step up and elevate themselves, just knowing this may be their last chance at being a starter quarterback in the NFL, the Colts are going to reap the benefits. Now, I'm asking a lot here because you're picking between a guy who has one read and a guy who's willing to quit on his team mid-game, but it is what it is. They both have shown talents, they just need the consistency, and maybe with a battle against each other in this preseason, they'll find a way to play just a little bit better. Am I coping here? Do the Colts really have a chance? Probably not, but it is what it is. This is your situation, and this is probably your only way to find success. The Jacksonville Jaguars, it's all about improving their late game execution. I don't think Jacksonville is nearly as bad as people are making them out to be. I don't think they're a great team by any means, but I still think they could be competitive in their division. They weren't as bad as their record suggests last year because they were in a lot of games that they played. They were in more games than they weren't, that is for sure. But whenever it came down to it, they were always choking leads, or they just couldn't find the end zone late in the fourth quarter, and it costed them many wins. I mean, they genuinely could have had like 8, 9, maybe even 10 wins if those games go in a different direction. If Trevor Lawrence can get a bit healthier and Travis Hunter can really be that guy on both sides of the football, I think this Jags team could have a bit of a different feel to them this year. But it's ultimately on them to learn from their lessons last year and not make the same critical mistakes that costed them a potential playoff berth. The Kansas City Chiefs. There's realistically not all that much can be done to make a team that made the Super Bowl last year get better, but one nitpicky thing that I want to see out of Kansas City is a more explosive offense like during the early days of Pat Mahomes' career. I know he's developed and thinks of the game a lot differently than he did in like his first couple of seasons, but the fact of the matter remains is that it's much harder for the Chiefs to stage comebacks and to put a lot of points on people's heads. Last year, they played a lot of uncomfortable games, and I think it comes down to not having a fluid offense that can score at will. I want to see them throw more bombs to Xavier Worthy and to get Travis Kelce involved vertically down the field. They need to go back to that. That way they aren't so one-dimensional. People are starting to figure out the Chiefs a little bit. The record could have been a lot worse than what it was last year, so you got to change things up to keep people on their toes. They're already one of the biggest Super Bowl contenders out there, so if they can become harder to read, I don't see why they don't get back there again. The Las Vegas Raiders hope that Geno Smith gives the team QB play they haven't seen since Rich Gannon was the starter. Not everyone's going to agree, but I like the idea of bringing Geno Smith onto this team. The Raiders haven't seen a great quarterback, or I guess a decent quarterback on this team since prime Derek Carr. They need someone to lead this team again. Geno's played well on Seattle in recent memory, and I think just compared to having Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, that this Raiders offense could take a huge leap in a different direction, and just knowing how they left games on the table last year, that could be a pretty big difference maker. Brock Bowers was still the best tight end in the league with absolute scrubs throwing him the football. You're telling me he and the rest of that offense won't be even more dangerous with Geno? I highly doubt that. Obviously, going from Seattle to the Raiders is a bit of an adjustment, but Geno's shown that he can be a good leader at this point. I trust in him with his age at this point, the vet that he is, to unlock the offense for this Raiders team. Will it be enough to get them to the playoffs? I'm not so sure, but it definitely gives them the best shot they've had in a while. For the LA Chargers, hope that Justin Herbert can win a damn playoff game already. He has still not done it since joining the league. The Chargers haven't gotten to the playoffs all that many times in his tenure, but when they have, they're always a bit of a letdown. They choked that game against the Jaguars. Herbert played maybe the worst game of his career against Houston. It's time to stop that. The Chargers are well coached now with Harbaugh there. It seems like they found an identity with their offense, very efficient, run game heavy. The defense looks the best it's had in a very long time. Now it's on Justin Herbert in the big moment to not freaking suck. Because if they can just win one game, I feel like anything is possible for this Chargers team. Herbert has all the talent in the world, but he just needs to prove to himself that he can do it, so he has that confidence to win big playoff games against even better teams. Speaking of LA, let's talk about the Rams, who really just need some steady improvement all around with one more good season out of Matt Stafford. We know that he's getting old and he doesn't have that much left in the tank, so if he can just have one more good push and the rest of the team continues to get a little bit better, they'll be right there. Jared Verse showed a lot of potential. That defense was a little better than I thought, so if they can get a bit more stingy, that could really help. That could be a big driving force for this team. They also traded out Cooper Kupp for Devontae Adams, who's clearly still more so at a high level. Him and Puka should complement each other very well, and just knowing how they almost beat the Eagles last year, they were the only ones who even came close in the playoffs, you gotta be feeling pretty hopeful about the Rams. At this point, it's just hoping that Matt Stafford can stay healthy. There's a lot of concerns right now behind the scenes that he will not be ready to go, and I hope this is not the end for him, because if he can channel his inner prime just one more time, this Rams team will have a serious shot at contending for a Super Bowl. They are right there. The Miami Dolphins keep Tua's head encased in bubble wrap at all times. Okay, it's probably going to take a little bit more than that if the Dolphins want to be a real contender, but a good starting place is having the same quarterback for the entire season without him missing extended time. All these head injuries have been absolutely destroying any chance of the Dolphins being consistent. They still almost made the playoffs last year despite him missing so much time. He's got the arm talent and the accuracy. They've got explosive players on offense. He just has to stay on the football field. Like I said with Jordan Love before with the Packers segment, you just can't develop that consistency when you're constantly switching out quarterbacks. If Tua can stay there the entire season, just knowing how close they got last year, I could see them maybe being a wild card team. So please, Dolphins, protect this guy with all your might. Keep him off the ground, and you have a chance at this. The Minnesota Vikings. JJ McCarthy doesn't see ghosts like Sam Darnold did. So the Vikings, what they need is basically how Sam Darnold played throughout the entire regular season, besides week 18 and then what happened in the wild card against the Rams. If they can get that kind of consistency out of JJ throughout the entire season, but then he can actually be clutch when it matters, the sky's the limit for this Vikings team. They're more than talented enough on both sides of the ball. Their defense is aggressive and ferocious. I absolutely love it. And I mean, you have the best wide receiver in freaking football on your team, arguably, in Jeddah. JJ McCarthy needs to flash his talents. He needs to show us why the Vikings are so confident in him. And you have to at least somewhat like his chances just knowing that he has the literal quarterback whisperer as his head coach. If he plays well, the Vikings can be a very scary team. It all depends on him, and that's the horrifying thing in this scenario because he's basically an overglorified rookie. He didn't get to play last year. He's never stepped foot on the field during the regular season before, so this is a big moment to decide the fate of the Minnesota Vikings. The New England Patriots hope the O-line gives Drake May time to actually throw the football. Because when we actually saw Drake May sling it with no pressure in his face, he made some damn beautiful plays. This guy has a lot of talent, and I like what the Patriots have done during the offseason, adding in more weapons, bringing in Mike Vrabel as the head coach. They've even tried to address the O-line as well. I think they're doing all the right things to try and make it so Drake May has a chance to be a seriously talented quarterback in the NFL. Now it's just a matter of making sure it translates with that O-line. Because if he has time to throw with the schedule the Patriots have and everything, they actually have a realistic shot at making the playoffs, as crazy as it sounds. They may have one of the best transformations in all the NFL this year, but it's all going to start with the trenches and actually giving this kid a chance to play. The New Orleans Saints pray that a good quarterback suddenly falls out of the sky or demands a trade. Realistically, this might be the worst team in the league. Not necessarily from a talent perspective, the Saints still do have some good playmakers, but their quarterback room just might be the worst I have ever seen. When your starting quarterback situation is either Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler, I just don't know what you can do. They've got good players like Alvin Kamara and Olave and whatnot, but if you can't get any use out of them, does it really matter in the end? I think at this point, the Saints need to find a desperation trade partner or pray that some random free agent just becomes the second coming of Tom Brady. Otherwise, this team stands no chance of being good because that QB situation is god-awful, and my thoughts and prayers are with you, Saints fans. This could be a rough one. The New York Football Giants hope that your D-line plays like the 07 team and the offense does just enough to stay afloat. The Giants made some nice moves during the offseason. I love that they tried to draft Jackson Dart to be their new franchise QB and that he learns behind some veterans for a year. And I love that they got Abdul Carter. That front seven is absolutely disgusting now with him, a healthy Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau playing his butt off in a contract season, hopefully. Now they have to actually be dominant and not just be this good defense on paper, because that's what it's going to take for the Giants to be any good, especially with that schedule. It's got to be pure domination up front, constantly in the quarterback's face. The idea is that they play like the magical Giants teams of 07 and 11, where the defense is always giving them a chance with that consistent pressure. If the defense can keep them in these games, you'd have to imagine a veteran like Russell Wilson, even if he's past his prime, is going to find ways to win some of those games. And if it's enough to get them to the playoffs, who the hell knows what could happen? It's a long shot. This Giants team isn't particularly great, but that defense is certainly something to look out for. The New York Jets hope that a new coach plus no Aaron Rodgers equals good culture. The Jets have been a train wreck. We were so optimistic before that they got Aaron Rodgers, and that completely blew up in their faces, and the coaching situation wasn't adding any morale either, and we saw the Jets locker room get absolutely destroyed as a result. Now it's a clean slate. We're hearing a lot of good things about the new coaching situation and how it's instilling some new confidence and good vibes in the players. Hopefully that, and not having to deal with Aaron Rodgers' drama, can actually make this Jets team play up to their potential. They have a lot of great playmakers on both sides of the football, but they're constantly getting in their own way mentally because things are just never stable over there. If they can find that stability, then I'd like to feel pretty optimistic about the Jets being a competitive football team this year. Now, it's going to take a lot with Justin Fields at quarterback, but you got to start somewhere. The Philadelphia Eagles maintain and don't go soft. Basically, do what you did last year. Dominant O-line play, let Saquon do his thing with the run game, and have a swarming defense. Hope that the secondary and those young players keep on getting better, and there shouldn't be anything to worry about. This Eagles team is one of the most talented in the league. They're coming off a championship. Clearly, they're still hungry. They're acting like the score is 0 again, so they're doing all the right things. Now it's just about executing and avoiding injury, and that should be all it takes. This Eagles team is very clearly the best in the NFC, so it is on them and no one else alone at this point. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you need better than average quarterback play. Now, is that going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? I'm not so sure about that, especially with some of the things I've heard recently about how practice has been going over there in Pittsburgh, but you've got to try something. If he's just a little better than what Russ and Justin Fields were last year, this Steelers team could be pretty problematic. That defense is stingy. Mike Tomlin is a proven winner. This team always finds ways to go above 500, even with all the odds stacked against them. So you'd have to imagine with a competent offense that they could take another big step. Again, though, the issue is I don't know if they have that competent offense. I don't know if they have the right quarterback in place. To me, it feels like Aaron Rodgers is running away from the truth, and he's completely and utterly washed at this point, but we'll have to see what happens as the season progresses. The San Francisco 49ers. For them, it's all about health, and even more health. Much like the Detroit Lions, this team was absolutely ravaged by injuries last year. So many key defenders going down. Christian McCaffrey, which is the engine of that offense, dealing with injuries throughout the entire season. Brandon Ayuk getting hurt as well. They just need those guys to stay on the football field because it wasn't that long ago that this team was competing in the Super Bowl. And outside of a couple of things changing, it's mostly the same team. So if they can actually figure out a way to stay on the field and be productive together consistently, they could be winning their division again. It's going to be tough knowing some of the defenders that they lost, but I feel like this team's pretty capable just knowing who's coaching them and some of the players there. So stay healthy and that division could very well be yours because it's definitely up for grabs right now. The Seattle Seahawks have Sam Darnold put this team forward instead of backwards. Not an easy task knowing that Seattle were a 10-win team, but somehow missed the playoffs. Geno Smith is not an easy player to replicate in terms of production. He's put up some good numbers since becoming the prime option over in Seattle. He did make some mistakes, though, that costed his team some games down the stretch, and of course that means a potential playoff berth. So if Darnold can have that same efficiency, but get rid of the turnovers, this team could benefit a lot from it, but we're going to have to see if Sam Darnold can prove himself. If he can prove that last year was not a fluke, playing under such a great system with the coaching he had in the O-line. Playing in Seattle is going to be a different beast. You won't have Jetta to bail you out. They don't even have DK Metcalf anymore. This is going to be the biggest moment in Sam Darnold's career, and it will decide if Seattle are going to have to rebuild or if they still have a chance of competing. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Consistency is the key. Tampa are easily one of the best teams in the NFC, and I still think they're a little underappreciated. Baker Mayfield has looked so good since joining this football team, and I think if they put 2 and 2 together, they have a chance to at least make the NFC Championship game. The problem is that they always seem to get in their own way. They'll go on these streaks, they'll beat great teams, even like the freaking Eagles, for example, but then they'll shoot themselves in the foot, and on other weeks, they'll let freaking washed up Kirk Cousins throw for 500 yards against them on Thursday Night Football. They've got to be able to put 2 and 2 together and not make such dumb mistakes. They only won like 10 games last year when it felt like they should have won a lot more. But when you keep getting in your own way and you're letting the NFC South hang in there with you, that's typically going to happen. They almost beat the Commanders. It could have been them in that NFC Championship game, but that delivery down the stretch always seems to be a problem with them. If they can just maintain the course, I could see them being a big-time threat in the NFC. And wrapping up the AFC, the Tennessee Titans, and you gotta hope that the league explodes and that Cam Ward is the second coming of Tom Brady. The Titans are in a pretty unfortunate situation just because this is the very start of their rebuild. You can't expect too much from them in just year one of this thing. They're in a similar situation to like Cleveland or the Giants, where it's just the beginning. They may not have enough talent to actually get there. Hence why I think that the NFL needs to literally explode. They need a lot of teams to completely shit the bed and be nowhere near what they're supposed to be if they want a shot. It helps that they're in a weak AFC South, but again, that really may not matter with how early they are into this thing. They need this Titans team to really step up and have some luck go their way, and hope that Cam Ward can have a Jaden Daniels-esque rookie season where he really elevates this team way above what their ceiling is supposed to be. If he can show he's the truth, that'll certainly help, but they're going to need multiple miracles to even have a chance of sniffing the playoffs. And lastly, the Washington Commanders, who, put it simply, need Jaden Daniels to keep on getting better. Hopefully, what we saw last year was Jaden Daniels at his worst, which is crazy to say because that was one of the best rookie seasons by a quarterback any of us have ever seen, but that's what it's going to take. We don't really know if the Commanders have all that great of a team. It's definitely not the worst in the world. They've improved it in recent memory, but I don't think they're at the elite tier of some of those other Super Bowl contenders. They're kind of depending on Jaden Daniels to carry them, just like with Josh Allen over in Buffalo, and we're going to have to see if he can do it. May even be without Terry McLaurin for the foreseeable future, so this is where we see if Jaden Daniels really is the truth. If he can avoid that sophomore slump, and he can make even less mistakes than what he did last year, which seems unlikely, that Commanders team will be right back in the NFC Championship game. I really do believe that guy is that good. He has shown such elite traits for a young quarterback, all the intangibles that you want. But with the lack of talent at some places, he's going to have to play even better if they want to get over the hump to beat a team as good as Philadelphia. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is one path that every team could take to win the Super Bowl, or at least be better than what they're supposed to be. Let me know what you think down in the comments below about all these teams, and if you're looking forward to the upcoming football season, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more NFL discussions just like this one. Peace.